If God had eyes, no doubt, perfect, golden, whole is how God would see each one of us. No matter what state we find ourselves in, no matter how we feel about ourselves. So another way to see this is that the fullness of God consciousness, the fullness of God reality, exists in a state and in a place as a field that is beyond duality, beyond being able to perceive or even see lack, limitation, injury, less than. It is that freely flowing fountain of absolute consciousness, absolute love, always available, always present. Amen? So if we are, in fact, expressions of this love, expressions of this consciousness, co-creators, is it not ours to activate that same state of consciousness within ourselves? The fear of the human condition, the fear of the ego, the fear of the limited mind is to say, I could not possibly immerse myself in that degree of love. I could not consciously immerse the world in that degree of love, because how would it grow? How would it awaken? How would it get better? What I see from this human condition is that it's not enough, it's not good enough, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. There's always something better, there's always a higher state to reach. So if I immerse in love, well, who's going to whip it into shape? Charles Fillmore said that love is the harmonizing faculty, the harmonizing power. Love is that which binds, love is that which harmonizes. So let's ask ourselves the question today, and whether or not that whole philosophy, whether that whole concept is outdated, is limited. In fact, do you believe that we can love enough to uplift, love enough to transform? In the human condition, what tends to happen, we know, is that we end up pushing things away. We end up perceiving problems, perceiving issues, perceiving ailments, perceiving negativity, and going, well, I don't want that. I don't want it in my being. I don't want it in my emotions. I don't want it in the world. And so we tend to push away. But if our God consciousness, if God power, if God life is love and wholeness, and it in fact transforms and draws all things in together to uplift and transform, isn't that in fact a more power-filled decision of how to show up to ourselves and to our world? Do we think we can push away enough, hate enough, be aggravated enough, be impatient enough, be disgusted enough to heal? One of my favorite things Marianne Williamson has ever shared that I caught was a moment where she said that the only thing wrong with when she was in the movement, the love movement, the no war movement of the 60s, the 70s, the only thing wrong, she said, was that there was an energy of coming from that there is something against me, that we're fighting something, that with love we can have enough of it to like overpower it. She didn't, of course, say it just like that. But that was one of the only issues, that there was resistance. It wasn't just this pure acceptance, pure love, pure state of non-resistance, state of consciousness that is just surrounding, enveloping, loving, co-creating. So are we ready to release the idea that with resistance we can heal something? We know that energy is neither created or destroyed, right? It only changes form. Well, if it's not created or destroyed and it only changes form, there's no such place as a way. We in our ego minds, we in the human condition, like to throw a lot of things away. We like to, in fact, imagine that everything is away from us. God is away. God is either up there or over there, something like that. The devil, the idea, which in unity is just an idea of separation, an idea of limitation, an idea of inconsciousness, having disconnection, not a little man in a frying pan that's finding us, hunting us down, not the enemy. But it's not a way either, whether you want to call it the devil or you want to call it an ego. Trash. We like to kick it away. Not in my backyard. Do we know? Do we see that we're all on this planet? We're all on this globe. We're right here on this globe. It looks like we're staying here, at least for today. We're staying on this one. Yet we continue to generate garbage and push it away. What would we be doing if we had to sit with it all? What would we be doing if it had to stay in your house, stay in your car, stay in your garage, stay on your land? Because it does it not? There is no such place as a way. There is no such place as a way. Even with death, right? The biggest illusion of all. The master teacher showed us, you think you can send me away? One of my favorite readings was this depiction of the master teacher laughing with a smile over the body, his body. Just laughing, going like, ha. You think that's a way? There's no such place as a way, is there not? There's books written about it. Feelings buried alive never die. Feelings don't even go away. In fact, we have a beautiful part of our psyche, a beautiful part of our mind, that if we are under enough stress and if we are under enough trauma, that it will take that feeling and just sweat it out like an anxiety attack. You can't handle the thoughts? Well, here you go. Let's put some in the body. Feelings buried alive never die. If we think we can just get through and have a trauma or something that happens, we actually have an intelligent system that represses some of the memories, that takes some of it and goes, well, I can't just throw this away for you, but what I can do is just set it right here so you won't remember it until you're ready. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough, when you're centered enough, when you're balanced enough, you can peel off another layer of the onion and deal with this one. That's an intelligent system. That's an intelligent mind. We have intuitions within us, right? We have a GPS system within us that goes, not going in the right direction here, or something isn't sitting right with me. We can choose to say, go away. Let me get on a medication. Let me go to a therapy appointment. Let me do whatever I can to get this away. Or we can start to listen and say, maybe it's not going to go away unless I accept it and start to listen and recognize that maybe there's some intelligence here. Maybe there's something for me to listen to intuit, to act on, to respond to awaken to. We are immersed in a field of intelligence, and we are expressions of that intelligence. One of my favorite Deepak Chopra teachings is that our beings are the central nervous system of the planet. Like we are the central nervous system. So what is going to express? So if energy is neither created nor destroyed, it only changes form, what's our other option? We can either continue burying, continue pushing away, continue acting like there isn't a way, like there is a place that when we die, we're just gone, we're just done, like there is a possibility that I could just ignore something and it won't haunt me. The cosmic 2x4 won't ever come hit me on the head. Or we can recognize that it is our divine right to be agents of transformation. Because energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can change forms. And we are form changers. We are shape shifters. That is part of our divine birthright. It is part of who and whose we are. The master teachers, the saints, the sages throughout the ages have demonstrated this practice, and that's why people have been in awe. That's why people have wanted to learn. Because something has not just been pushed away. They didn't just say, well, let's ignore that one, ignore that one, ignore that one. Okay, we'll take this one. No, they transformed. There was nothing that needed to be feared. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's great pleasure to give you the kingdom. Fear not, little one that feels they are only human, for it is your source's great pleasure to show you the divine potential within, to show you that everything you need you already have access to. It is right here present. dear one. So we are here and we are called to be agents of transformation. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to stuff, to shove away, to resist. And once we can lean into that practice, we ignite a whole new path. And when one heals, right? When one heals for themselves, is it not like a tuning fork that radiates out in consciousness, that radiates through the planet, that radiates through the ethers? So what if there is no such thing as a way? Are we willing to take that on as a spiritual practice? What does it mean to take it on as a spiritual practice? Does it mean we have to deal with everything that comes up, keep all of our garbage right in our homes? Not literally. We're very creative. We can transform it. But what does it mean? What do we do? Do we stuff our feelings, just hold on to them? We can't run, we can't hide. It's like the blob. You can't run, you can't hide. So what do? Just sit there with it? What could we possibly have as human beings that makes us capable of dealing, of being agents of transformation? What could we possibly have as human beings? Well, maybe we don't have anything, but there's something that has us. It's a spirit. We have a spirit. What is a spirit? A spirit is something that has wings. A spirit is something that is light, that is lifted. A spirit is something that is energy. It's not bound, it's not confined, it's not limited. It's not limited to our own minds. A spirit is that which makes us not even limited to our own intelligence, our own strength. It is that part of us that is not limited to a body or a particular time, a particular space. It is that part of us that has access to the full consciousness in which we live and we move and we have our being. And far too often we call ourselves little. Far too often we act like that is somewhere that is away, that is far away, that is somehow in a place or a space where others can access it or where we may be going to someday. And overcoming that idea is overcoming the greatest illusion. If God is a pervasive consciousness, a field that is everywhere present, if it is the intelligence that is everywhere pressing through, drawing all things into harmony, into the highest order, if God consciousness is the love binding everything together, the wholeness, it is never away. We are swimming in it. If it's in front of me, if it's behind me, if it's within me, it's here. So then, when something is in our field, when we're aware of something that we're resisting, that we don't want, energy that we want to move out of the way, we sit with it. And we say, if this is in front of me, if this is in my awareness, then it's mine to look at. It's mine to be aware of. I am a co-creator. You know that even the idea of the observer effect shows us that you cannot see something without changing it. The fact of your witnessing something means that it's there for you to be a part of, to co-create. The human condition likes to ignore this, likes to think it's just human, that there's nothing within that's capable or valid enough to support being present to things that cause discomfort, that cause pain, that cause discord. But if we are expressions of God consciousness, then we can't just ignore what is in front of us. Because in fact, by being aware of it, by feeling it, by seeing it, we are interacting with it. That part is not optional. It may appear to be optional because it appears we're in separate forms. It appears we're in different places. But by the power of simply even observing something, we're interacting with it. We're interacting with it. I just got to see one of my nieces. She's a spiritual niece by spiritual adoption. And she is having one of her first experiences in school. And she went to a school that was at a Unity Center where every time, anything was up, they would talk about it. They would talk about it and process how they show up. So she's very used to kids just showing up, sharing, and showing up loving and having those conversations. And now she's in an entirely different preschool. And she's coming home with these very interesting stories of kids like taking something and stepping on it, like taking her little thing that she brought in and stepping on it, go, well, if I can't have it, then you can't either. Kids hitting their teacher. And so she has all these cute things of like, this is what happened today, and it's not okay. And this is what happens with little Johnny, and like, Johnny hits me, and then Johnny hits the teacher. And then Johnny has to sit in the thinking chair, but Johnny is not thinking in the thinking chair. Johnny is not thinking in the thinking chair. Because Johnny gets up and hits someone again. So I said to her, and I'm sure her mother was going, really, Erin? Like, this is so, I don't know, over her head. But I was like, what do you do when that happens with Johnny? So she says she plays with other people. I said, there's something that you can do. You can send him a blessing, and you can get in tune with your own heart, and a place within your own heart that you feel peace, and then you can just burst it out to him, like blowing a kiss. And I gave a lot of other examples that probably got way too heady. But the truth is, every time we witness something and every time we see something, by the power of how we interact with it, we are co-creating, we are engaging the principle of the observer effect. And there is a shift that is happening. So if I see something and I'm calling it bad, I'm calling it wrong. If I see something and I'm sending a blessing, I'm sending a high vibration. I'm sending a tuning fork that is a tuning fork in consciousness that heals, that creates, that is compassionate. Then I am consciously using my God-given faculties. Amen? And that's what we're all here to do, whether we're in pre-K or in the community. That's what we're here to do. So the fullness of God consciousness, the fullness of what we could say, God's role. God's role. What's God's role in all of this? Well, God's role is the grand overall design. If God consciousness is everywhere present and can see all, that is in fact the universal eyes, then that's God's role, is to deal with the details, to put the overall design together, to press forth the divine thought of the divine blueprint. That is all things, that is the highest consciousness of all things, that is the highest possible potentiality of all things. I can't see all of those things as a human spiritual being, can I? Not consciously. I can't even see into the depths of the ocean unless I have some special camera. There's even sounds that they say teenagers can hear in a classroom that adults can't hear. Adults can't hear that sound anymore. Like literally, if that sound was playing in this sanctuary through the live stream, we wouldn't be able to hear it. But someone with the right set of ears at the right age would hear it loud and clear. So all I can do then, all I can be with is what I am aware of, what's in front of me. That's my job. That's my role, is looking at what's in my awareness. Because if God is the grand overall design, you are the activity of God in expression. I am the activity of God in expression. And my part is to be with what I'm aware of. So how do I do that? I bring forth my I am consciousness. I bring forth my I am consciousness. That is the consciousness of transformation. That is the consciousness of divine activity. So think about the I am as intuit, act, meditate. I am. Intuit, act, meditate. The first step is to look at what is mine to do, what is mine to say. And we really take on the practice of a sage when we do this. It's not like, ooh, now I got an agenda. I'm going to be talking all the time. It's really a state of listening. What is mine to say? A state of high discernment. 9 times out of 10, we'll ask that question, and we may get divine understanding as we pray for it, and we might get, not yet. What to do? Nothing. What to say? Nothing. You know those people, I'm not one of them, that has very few words when they share something? And so when they do, you just stop and you listen. Very, very few words. We intuit. We intuit. And we simply intuit and listen by knowing this truth, knowing that God is not away, not somewhere else. I had the pleasure to be with Mike Dooley this weekend, and he gave this really great example that I think brings it home. It can be a radical thing to say, and I don't usually say it, to say, you are God. It can be a radical thing to say. But he gave an example that made that idea, for some it's not a threatening idea, for some it's not a, what? But listen to this example he gave, and I'll do it in my way. But essentially the short version is that if all there was God, and then God started moving into expression. Right now we have a lot of stuff. We have physical form, we have matter. So if all there was first, though, was God, and then there was a divine thought, and that divine thought put things into activity. And Charles Fillmore said that all things are created of life, intelligence, substance. So we can think of it as being this God thought, this great divine image, imaged out, pressed out into the universe as creative activity. So if there was just God, and now there's us, he said, think about it like cooking in a kitchen. If you walk into your kitchen and you're making a stew and you have potatoes and carrots and that's all you got potatoes and carrots, so you start cutting up everything, you put it in the stew. When you get your stew, are you going to have broccoli stew? Are you going to have cauliflower stew? Are you going to have kale stew? No, what are you going to have? Potato and carrot stew. I thought, brilliance, Mike Dooley. It's an easy way to understand it, isn't it? If there's one power and one presence and all there is God, then that's all the ingredients there are in the kitchen. That's it. We are of the ingredients. We are the stew. So remembering that there is no out there, there is no away. So that divine right, that birthright to intuit, belongs to each of us. There's no intermediary needed. There's no negotiating, pleading, or begging. Simply is. The second step is to act, of the I am. Intuit, act, and meditate. Act. Act on what we get, what is ours to do. Because we can't just be limited. We can't just sit there. Charles Fillmore intuited the 12 powers. Those are our 12 divine faculties, from a book that Reverend Greg Nettler wrote. He talks about these. I'm just going to share a little bit because many of us know the 12 powers. If you don't, they go along with the spiritual chakra system. But Charles Fillmore's idea was that if you elevate your consciousness around all of those powers together, if they are all raised, and you may work on one at a time, but if they're all raised to the highest vibration, that is the Christed consciousness. That is the consciousness that was experienced and expressed within Jesus the Christ, the master teacher. That is the consciousness that is actually the divine blueprint of all men, all women, all beings. So it's raising the field of all of those. But Greg Nettler puts it in some different language. So we have these divine faculties like faith, strength, judgment, love, power, imagination, understanding, order, zeal, will, elimination, and life. But then you can also think about this. These faculties are the power of the mind to do something. The power of the mind for faith is that power that can perceive. For strength is the power to accomplish. These are the actions. These are how we act. For judgment, it's the power to discern. For love, it's the power to unify. For power, it's the power to give dominion. Imagination, the power to give form. Understanding, the power to comprehend. Order, the power to harmonize. Zeal, the power to motivate. Will, the power to choose or decide. Elimination, the power to release. Life, the power to activate. Let's have the slide. I came across this slide. On one side, it's this gentleman sitting with the master teacher, and he says, so why do you allow things like famine, war, suffering, disease, crime, homelessness, despair to exist in our world? The master teacher says, interesting that you should bring that up, as I was about to ask you the exact same question. Far too often, we forget that we are the activity of God, that we're here to bring it. Are we ready to bring it? The last step is to meditate. Meditating clears the vessel. You can think of it as polishing your spiritual lens, spinning your chakras, fueling your jet, however you want to think about it. But when we spend time in the silence, when we meditate, we create a receptive being. Receptive to our highest consciousness, receptive to God consciousness, receptive to infinite potential. We must take a mental getaway. It creates coherence. It creates the only state that can bring in more love, that can bring in that transformation. The only state that actually helps things transform and change form. The energy, remember, not being created or destroyed. So if we want more energy, what do we have to do? We have to change its form so it is available. We have to change the form so it is available. So let's do some affirmations. I live in an infinite universe. Together? I live in an infinite universe, full of infinite love, full of infinite wisdom. I am full of creative power, and I exercise that power. In one of the Louise Hay conference workshops that I went to, there was an exercise on coding. One of the women that taught that you have some actually like chakras on the tips of your fingers, and that by putting your two fingers on the middle of your forehead and then looking up, closing your eyes and looking up to that place, you activate, which really makes sense with Fillmore's work of saying that this is the center of faith. This is the center of faith that he intuited, which is the perceiving power of mind linked with the ability to shape substance. And she said, you do this and then you code your being. So it's like reprogramming even your physical self. So if you feel like doing this with me, if you want to get funky today, I code love. Together? I code love. So it's looking up to the third eye. I code wisdom. Together? I code divine life. Together? I code strength. Together? I code strength. And so it is. Amen. Namaste.